People are hateless, they say. Nobody wants to believe that someone out there is spending their nights figuring out how to end you. I believe that too. For a long time. I built a billion-dollar company in this country with my hands and my mind and 23 years of sleeping 4 hours a night. And as a reward for all of it, I have been attacked. Multiple times. During one of those attacks, I lost a kidney. A kidney. I cannot walk free in my own country anymore. I travel with security. I check my food. I watch every face in every room. This story will make you teary. Stay with me. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button and tell me in the comments where in the world you are watching from. Because what this young woman did in a dark alley in Chicago on the worst night of my life, the woman I paid to clean my floors, is something you absolutely cannot miss. Do not click away. This story starts right now. This is my story. My name is Harrison Cole. 62 years old. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to a father who drove a delivery truck and a mother who cleaned offices at night after working a cash register during the day. We were not poor in the way that destroys people. We had food, we had warmth, we had the specific dignity of a family that worked for everything it had and owed nothing to anyone. But we were not wealthy. Not even close. I built Cole Capital from a $12,000 personal loan when I was 39 years old. Technology infrastructure, the invisible architecture that makes the digital world run. Data centers, fiber networks, cloud systems that most people use every day without knowing my name is attached to them. I grew it across 23 years into a company valued at $4.2 billion. I tell you this not to impress you. I tell you this so you understand what I was when the enemies came. What I had built. What was worth taking. Because when you have nothing, nobody wants to destroy you. It is only when you have built something real that the people who could not build it themselves begin to look at what you have with the specific, patient hunger of people who have decided that what is yours should be theirs. I sensed it for years before I could name it. In boardrooms, the specific quality of a smile that does not reach the eyes of a man who used to reach higher in this industry than I did and now watches me from below. At charity events, the handshakes of partners whose firms I had outcompete on 3 consecutive major contracts and who congratulated me with the warmth of people who meant the opposite. In my own home, the silence of a marriage that had been correct and comfortable for 16 years but had, somewhere in the last 3, become something that felt less like partnership and more like cohabitation. 2 people sharing a large house and a public reputation and very little else. My wife, Diana, was 45. We had met when I was still building, when Cole Capital was 4 years old and she was a financial consultant whose intelligence and precision I had found irresistible. She was sharp, composed, always immaculately presented. She had been a genuine partner in those early years, pushing back on my decisions, challenging my thinking, keeping me honest in the way that only a person who is genuinely invested in your success can. I did not know exactly when that changed. I know it changed. Looking back, I can trace the temperature dropping across years, the dinner conversations that became briefings, the shared plans that became separate calendars, the physical distance that widened in increments so small that each one was individually deniable but collectively impossible to ignore. I told myself it was the pressure of success. That wealth changes the dynamic of a marriage. That we would find our way back. I was telling myself a story that was more comfortable than the truth. My body was also telling me things I did not want to hear. The illness had been developing for 2 years before the diagnosis. A kidney condition, progressive, serious, the kind that requires management and monitoring and a recalibration of everything you think you can do. My doctor, a precise man named Dr. Ellison who delivered difficult news with the flat efficiency of someone who has learned that softening it does not change it, told me on a Tuesday morning that I needed to significantly reduce my stress, alter my schedule, and accept that my body was not the instrument it had been. I told nobody. Not Diana. Not my business partner, Marcus Webb, who had been my closest friend for 18 years and who handled the operational side of Cole Capital with the tireless dedication of a man who had built his career alongside mine. Not my security team. Nobody. I was Harrison Cole. I did not present weakness. The maid noticed something was wrong before anyone else did. Naomi Washington had worked in our Chicago residence for 14 months. She was 28 years old, a black woman from the South Side, precise and quiet and efficient in the way of someone who had learned early that invisibility in wealthy homes was not degradation but strategy. She moved through our house like she was made of air. She remembered preferences without being told twice. She replaced things before they ran out. She worked with the specific, thorough attention of someone who understood that her work was the only currency available to her and treated it accordingly. I barely noticed her, which I am ashamed to admit. But she noticed me. She noticed the medication I kept in the bathroom cabinet that was not there 6 months ago. She noticed the way I sat down slowly at the kitchen table some mornings. She noticed that I had stopped taking the stairs 2 at a time the way I always had and had begun using the elevator in my own home. She said nothing. She noted it. She also noticed Diana. The phone calls Diana took in the study with the door closed, which had not been her habit before. The way Diana's demeanor changed when Marcus Webb came to the house, a loosening, a warmth that was different from her usual composed courtesy. The specific, practiced neutrality of a woman making sure her face was correct when it might be observed. Naomi saw all of it from the invisible space that domestic workers occupy in wealthy homes, the space that powerful people forget exists because they have spent so long looking past the people in it. She stored everything she saw. She said nothing. She was waiting, the way patient people wait, for the moment when it would matter. That moment came on a Thursday night in November. Stay right here. Do not go anywhere. Because what happens next on that Thursday night in November, in a dark alley 3 blocks from Michigan Avenue, is the moment that changed everything. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Share it right now. Because the betrayal that is coming, who planned it, who executed it, and who nobody expected to stop it, will shock you to your core. Stay with me. Diana had a late function at her firm's downtown office. She did not usually ask me to drive her. She had her own car, her own driver for evening events, her own independence that she maintained with the careful deliberateness of someone who valued having the capacity to come and go without accounting to anyone. But that Thursday she had called me at 4 in the afternoon and asked, in the warm voice she used when she wanted something to appear spontaneous, whether I could pick her up at 9. "It's been a while since we've had the drive together," she said. "I thought it would be nice." I said yes. Because I was still telling myself the story about finding our way back. Because warmth from Diana, however rare, was something I reached for. I drove downtown. I collected her from the glass lobby of her firm's building, where she stood in a dark coat looking exactly the way she always looked, composed, beautiful, correct. She kissed my cheek. She talked on the drive home about the function, the clients, the colleagues. She was good at filling space with the right words when she needed to. We were 8 blocks from home when I realized I had left my phone in the restaurant I had eaten at earlier that afternoon, a small place on Wabash where I had taken a solo lunch, one of the rare quiet hours I gave myself. "I need to stop for 2 minutes," I told her. I left my phone. She checked her own phone. Something crossed her face, quickly, managed, controlled. "Of course," she said. I parked on the street. I walked toward the restaurant. It was on Wabash, down a side passage that cut between 2 buildings, a narrow route I had used 100 times. Efficient. Familiar. They came from both ends simultaneously. 4 men. Big, deliberate, moving with the coordinated precision of people who had rehearsed this. Not opportunistic street crime. Not a random mugging. A planned operation executed on a specific target at a specific time in a specific location. The first blow came from behind, a forearm across the back of my neck that dropped me before I could turn. I hit the alley ground hard, my blue suit jacket taking the first impact. I tried to rise. A boot connected with my ribs. I heard something crack. I went down again. They were not trying to rob me. They had not asked for my wallet or my watch. They were trying to end something. I covered my head with both arms and thought, with the strange, clear-headed calm that extreme violence produces in the mind, that this was how it ended. In an alley in Chicago. 3 blocks from Michigan Avenue. On a Thursday night in November while my wife waited in the car 8 blocks away. What I did not know, what I could not have known, was that my wife had not waited in the car. And that Naomi Washington, who had been in that same vehicle accompanying Diana to collect additional items from the function venue, had heard something through a phone call she was not meant to hear. Naomi told me this herself, afterward, in a hospital room where I had tubes in my arm and a cracked rib and a face that looked like it had argued with a sidewalk and lost. She told me calmly, in the specific, unhurried way she did everything, sitting in the chair beside my bed with her hands folded in her lap. She did not perform the story. She just told it. Diana had made a phone call the moment I stepped out of the car. Naomi, sitting in the back seat, had heard it through the gap in the privacy partition that Diana had forgotten was not fully sealed. He just got out. Wabash Alley. You have maybe 3 minutes. For words that rearranged everything, you have maybe 3 minutes. Naomi said she sat with those words for exactly 5 seconds. She said she thought about her job, her rent, her mother's medical bills, every practical reason to stay in the car and hear nothing and see nothing and know nothing. She thought about all of those things in 5 seconds. And then she got out of the car. She ran. In her dark green Maid uniform and her white apron and her flat black shoes on Chicago pavement, she ran toward the alley on Wabash because she had counted the blocks from the car to the restaurant and she knew where I had gone and she knew what 3 minutes meant. She heard the sounds before she saw anything, the specific, sickening sounds of impact that a human body makes when it is receiving the kind of violence it was not designed to receive. She came around the corner of the alley and saw me on the ground and 4 men in the business of making sure I did not get up. I want you to understand what I am about to tell you. Naomi Washington was 28 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, and weighed 140 pounds. She had no weapon. She had no phone in her hand, she had left it in the car. She had nothing except the specific, furious clarity of a person who has made a decision and is no longer calculating the cost. The man nearest to me was in a green jacket. He was 220 pounds of deliberate violence and he had a boot drawn back for what I understood, from my position on the alley floor, was intended to be conclusive. Naomi hit him from the side with everything she had. She told me later that she had 3 years of Muay Thai training from a gym on the south side where a retired fighter named Coach Darnell had taught her when she was 22 because the neighborhood she grew up in had taught her that the world was not always safe and that the ability to defend yourself was not optional. She had trained for 3 years and then stopped because the membership fee had been rerouted to her mother's hospital bills. She had not forgotten what she learned. The man in the green jacket went airborne in a way that I watched from the alley floor with the specific, disoriented amazement of a person whose brain is not fully functional but is still registering things that do not make sense. He hit the brick wall. He did not get up immediately. The second man came at her. She used his momentum, redirected it, put him into the ground beside a trash can with a precision that made a sound I will not forget. He stayed down. The third and fourth men, the ones in the background who had been watching the entry points of the alley, looked at each other and looked at her and made the calculation that she was not what they had been told to expect. Whatever they had been promised for this night was not worth what they were now facing. They ran. Naomi stood in the center of that alley, breathing hard, in her green Maid dress and white apron, and she looked around at the men she had put down and the ones who had run, and then she looked at me on the ground. She came to me. She knelt. Her hands on my face, checking, assessing, the same hands that had made beds and polished surfaces and moved through my house for 14 months without anyone ever looking at them closely. "Mr. Cole," she said. "I'm here. Stay awake for me." "Naomi," I said. I do not know what I intended to say after that. Nothing adequate came. She called 911. She stayed beside me until the sirens arrived. She did not leave the alley. She did not run from what she had witnessed and what she knew. When the police came, she told them everything. The phone call through the partition. The 4 words. The 3 minutes. She told them calmly, in the unhurried way she did everything, with the specific moral courage of a person who has decided that the truth is not negotiable regardless of what it costs. It cost her a great deal. Diana was in the car 8 blocks away when the police found her. She had a second phone, a burner, the kind that serious people use for conversations they need to disappear. The call records on it told a story that was 3 years in the making. It told the story of a wife who had decided, somewhere in the long cooling of a marriage, that the exit she wanted required more than divorce proceedings. It told the story of a business partner named Marcus Webb who had spent 18 years building alongside me and had spent the last 3 building something else, a resentment rooted in the belief that his contribution to Cole Capital had never been properly valued, and a relationship with my wife that had grown from professional proximity into something neither of them had ever disclosed. It told the story of 4 men hired through connections that Marcus had cultivated in a part of his life I had never examined, paid to finish something that divorce lawyers could not accomplish cleanly enough. It told the story of the previous attacks I had survived, the car that had run a red light into my vehicle 2 years ago, which I had attributed to accident. The mugging 18 months ago in New York that had taken my kidney, a mugging that the police had closed as opportunistic street crime but that now, in the context of everything else, was something else entirely. The phone records connected all of it. Naomi had not just saved me from a Thursday night in November. She had saved me from the conclusion of a 3-year plan that had already taken 1 kidney and had come, in that alley on Wabash, to collect the rest. Right here. Before the next part of this story, subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Share it with every person you know. Because what I said to Naomi Washington in that hospital room, and what I discovered about the full depth of the betrayal around me, is the part of this story that I have never been able to tell without my voice breaking. Stay for it. It is worth everything. I was in Northwestern Memorial Hospital for 9 days. My cracked ribs healed. My face healed. The damage to my remaining kidney, because yes, I only had 1 left after New York, was evaluated, monitored, and ultimately declared stable. Dr. Ellison came to the hospital room on the 2nd day and sat across from me with the flat efficiency I had come to respect and said, "You need to hear some things about your kidney function." I said, "I need to hear some things about a lot of things." We both meant it. Diana was arrested the night of the attack. She was processed, charged, and released on bail that her lawyers arranged before morning. She sat across from me in that hospital room on the 4th day, her lawyer beside her, mine beside me, with the composed expression of a woman who had decided that dignity in defeat was the last remaining asset. She did not apologize. She did not explain. She looked at me with those precise, intelligent eyes and said, "I'm sorry it came to this, Harrison." I looked at her for a long time. "What did you think it would come to?" I said. She had no answer that was honest, and she was too intelligent to offer one that wasn't. Marcus came to the hospital on the 3rd day without a lawyer, which told me his lawyer had already advised him not to come and he had come anyway, which told me that 18 years of friendship still meant something to him even at the end of it. He stood in the doorway of my room in a way I had never seen him stand, without the easy confidence that had been his default in every room he had ever walked into with me. He said, "I don't expect you to forgive me." I said, "Good." He stood there a moment longer. "What happened to us?" I said. Genuinely. "What happened?" He looked at the floor. "I told myself a story," he said quietly. "About what I deserved. About what I built compared to what I had. I told it so many times it became true inside my head." He paused. "It wasn't true." "No," I said. "It wasn't." He left. His lawyers and mine handled what came next, and what came next was long and costly and necessary, and I will not pretend it was anything other than the most painful 18 months of my professional life. A man I had built 23 years with. A woman I had shared 16 of those years with. Both of them, together, choosing to end me rather than simply leave. I do not know how to make that make sense. I have stopped trying. What I can tell you is what happened with Naomi. She came to the hospital every day of those 9 days. Not because I asked her to. Because she came. She sat in the chair beside my bed and she brought coffee from the place on the ground floor, and she did not fill the silence with unnecessary words the way people do when they are uncomfortable with what has happened and need to perform normalcy. She just sat. The way she had always moved through my house, present, quiet, capable, she sat in that hospital room chair like she had decided she was going to stay until she was sure I was all right. On the 7th day, I asked her the question I had been building toward. Why did you get out of the car? She looked at me the way she had looked at me in the alley, directly, without performance, with the large, steady dark eyes of a woman who has never needed to dress herself in anything other than what is true. Because you were in that alley, she said. And I knew what was happening. And I could either stay in the car and tell myself it was not my problem, or I could get out. She paused. I have never been able to make myself look away from something that needs to be fixed. Even when looking at it costs me. It could have cost you everything, I said. Yes, she said. I knew that. I pressed my palms flat on the hospital blanket. You knew about Diana, I said. Before the alley. You had seen things. She was quiet for a moment. I had seen things, she said carefully. I did not have proof. And I did not know how to bring suspicion to a man about his own wife. She looked at me. I have thought about that a lot since. Whether I should have found a way. Whether I failed you in that. You did not fail me, I said. You got out of the car. She nodded once. I was discharged on the 9th day. My security team, expanded, restructured, no longer something I managed from a comfortable distance, drove me home to the house that Diana had vacated during my hospitalization, that felt large and empty and full of the echoes of a life that had been running on false foundations for years. Naomi came with me. Not as staff. I had already moved past the frame in my mind that she occupied in my household. She came as the person who had made it possible for me to come home at all, and who had not yet been properly acknowledged for that, and I intended to change that before another day passed. I sat down at the kitchen table. She sat across from me. I told her what I intended to do. Not as an employer arranging compensation, I was careful about the framing because I had learned, in 9 days of thinking clearly in a hospital room, that there is a difference between offering what makes you feel better and offering what is actually owed. A formal settlement for what she had done, her lawyer and mine working through the precise documentation of a woman who had prevented 2 charges that would have been upgraded to attempted murder. She had not done this because she expected payment. She had done it because of who she was. But who she was deserved to be protected materially as well as acknowledged personally. Her South Side neighborhood, her mother's house, the block she had grown up on, the community that had produced her, was the subject of a development grant that Cole Capital established and funded and placed in her name to administer. Not charity. An acknowledgement that the place that had built her was worth building. Her training, the Muay Thai she had stopped at 22 because of her mother's bills, the discipline and skill that had saved my life in an alley, I asked her what she wanted to do with it. She said she had thought about coaching. About teaching South Side kids what Coach Darnell had taught her. About making sure other young women had access to what she had had. We built the gym together. Not a gesture, a real facility, staffed and funded and bearing Coach Darnell's name on the door because Naomi insisted on it and she was right. She does not work in my house anymore. That chapter is closed and it should be closed, and neither of us needs it to continue in order for the rest of this to be true. We talk. We have dinner sometimes, at the kitchen table of a house that feels less empty now, slowly, as the echoes of what was false are replaced by the quieter, more honest sounds of what is real. Diana was convicted on reduced charges after a plea agreement that her lawyers negotiated and that I chose not to contest because I was tired of the fight and because the conviction itself, the public, documented, permanent record of what she had done, was more than I had expected the law to deliver and enough. Marcus received 3 years. He served 14 months. I received, from that alley on Wabash on a Thursday night in November, the specific, irreversible knowledge that the most dangerous people in your life are not the ones you can see coming. They are the ones sitting across your dinner table. They are the ones signing your contracts. They are the ones whose betrayal requires years of patience and planning because they understand exactly how you are built and exactly where the seams are. I also received something I did not expect to receive. The knowledge that the most trustworthy person in my house for 14 months was the one I had paid the least and looked at the least and thought about the least. The one who moved through my rooms like she was made of air. The one who got out of the car. I am 62 years old. I have 1 kidney. I travel with security that I no longer resent because I have accepted that the world is what it is and that pretending otherwise is its own kind of arrogance. I am also, for the first time in a very long time, honest about what I have and what I owe and who deserves to be seen in my life. That is what a dark alley in Chicago taught me. That is what Naomi Washington gave me. Not just my life. My sight. If this story reached something real in you, subscribe to this channel right now. Like this video. Share it tonight with 5 people. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from. I read every single one. Because the world has too many Harrison Coles, men who built everything and looked at nothing, and not enough Naomi Washingtons. But they exist. They are in your house and your office and your life, and they are seeing everything you are not looking at. Pay attention. While you still can.